Warm greetings from the high 10. It is the Vault XL. Thank you for joining me. Hello, Lady Lolo. This content is by KTVB. A year ago today, 4 University of Idaho students were found bludgeoned to death inside of a home on King Road. 3 of the young ladies were roommates. One was a male, and he was visiting one of the roommates, Miss Xana Carnotto. I'm going to play you content pertaining to what has transpired in the past year, and then we will also take a dive into the alleged suspect of those said murders, Brian Kohlberger. But we do want the focus to remain on the decedents because their lives matter. And prayers to the families, the students, the town, and justice for the 4 students. Thank you for joining me. If you'd like to donate to this great network, $ Big Angie 129 Cash App. Stickers and chats are welcome during this live stream. Thank you all so much for joining me.
We're back with breaking news about a murder mystery involving those 4 Idaho college students. A year ago today, life changed on the University of Idaho campus. What was once a safe college community spiraled into chaos. It was just a shocking crime for all of us. 4 students brutally murdered in a home just off campus, and Moscow was at the center of a media firestorm. Today is the 1-year mark of what happened on King Road, and we wanted to know how the University of Idaho is working on the continued healing of vandal students and staff. We went to Moscow to find out. We're back with breaking news about a murder mystery involving those 4 Idaho college students.
We know you have questions, and so do we. The university's dean of students responding to those ongoing fears. It's scary what's happened.
Take me back and tell me what you went through in those first days.
Those first days are really a blur. We were responding. We were all devastated. We were all in shock.
Blaine Eccles is the dean of students at the University of Idaho. He still can't believe what happened a year ago. 4 students brutally murdered in a home just off campus. Ethan Chapin, Xana Carnotto, Kaylee Gonzalez, and Madison Mogan. 4 beautiful lives cut short. The media descended on the small college town. This is the last thing you thought you'd have to deal with here at the U of I.
Yeah, no one ever anticipates going through an experience like this at all.
While police were investigating, Eccles says the U of I went into crisis mode.
We had a job to do, which was responding for the needs of our students. We led with a student-first approach of safety and security and support. That made it very simple in my world, from how our faculty responded and supported students who needed to go home at probably the darkest time in their life, for the support and outreach that I've seen students show and care and support of one another, to the beautiful outpouring of care and support for the families of these individuals that we've lost.
After weeks of uncertainty and fear,
Detectives arrested 28-year-old Brian Christopher Kohlberger.
Brian Kohlberger was arrested.
He was booked into the Latah County Jail.
And there was a huge sigh of relief on campus. A year later, life goes on. And the focus is now on healing.
This was a site that a lot of students really like because it's kind of quiet here and it's peaceful.
A major part of that healing is this open space on campus.
I knew that we'd have to create some sort of memorial to remember these 4 bright souls that we lost. And so we started and created a vandal healing garden and memorial. It's a quiet, secluded place nestled up against the trees. We have our students in the College of Art and Architecture that are leading the way with what a design could look like for that. I'm really excited to see what the students are going to do with it.
The Vandal Healing Garden and Memorial is still in the early phases, but donations are coming in.
Today, we've raised over $200,000, $219,000 that will go towards the Vandal Healing Garden and Memorial. So we're always looking for great donations and opportunities for folks to help us create a space where our Vandal family can come together and heal and grieve in support of one another.
Thousands of those dollars raised by students. Remember these Vandal Strong bracelets with the name of the 4 victims? They were sold to support this memorial.
Yeah, the bracelets, again, a student-led initiative, which they did phenomenal. They raised over, I think, $25,000. I'm actually wearing one of the bracelets right here.
But Eccles acknowledges there is one thing that remains near campus, something that makes it hard to heal. And you can see it from almost every direction. The now boarded up King Road house, the scene of the crime.
It is an impact on our students. It's a constant daily reminder for them, and that's a hardship as well.
Some of the families want it left alone until the trial is over. But at the beginning of this month, investigators once again visited the house. Since there's no date set for the Koberger trial, they wanted more time to examine the house and to build a model of it.
We're evaluating as the situation goes and seeing what happens on the court side too. At the moment, there aren't any plans underway to do anything with the house. President Green is just being very sensitive to the needs and the concerns of the family, but we also have a responsibility to our community too.
On the year anniversary, there will be a special student-led vigil at the U of I to remember these beloved vandals taken from this community.
Only students are going to be speaking at this vigil. It'll be at 6 o'clock on Monday, the 13th of November, and it's going to be open for anyone to join and participate.
A vigil to keep healing and keep moving forward one day at a time. A year later, Eccles says being a vandal means even more to him now.
The one thing I think it's really done is solidify what it means to be a member of the Vandal family. We are there for one another. We care for one another. We support one another.
Vandal strong. And that vigil is tonight at the University of Idaho.
It's going to be at 7 p.m. Mountain, so that's 6 p.m. up in Moscow. They're on Pacific time. It's going to be on the administration lawn at the Moscow campus. The university is also asking vandals all around the country to turn on their porch lights in solidarity from 7 to 8 p.m. Again, that's Mountain time to be 6 o'clock Pacific.
And coming up tonight at 10, I sit down with the parents of Kaylee Gonsalves at their home in Rathdrum, Idaho, to find out how they are doing a year later.
When this is all said and done, if you remember these 4 kids, that's the end goal that we're all working towards. And we're going to forget whatever loser did this, whatever monster put this together. He's going to become not the story, and the story will be...
He'll be non-existent.
Yeah, he won't even be around to be remembered, and everyone else will be.
The people that we have surrounding us, lifting us up in prayer and lifting us up.
Amazing.
And sharing this grief with us, and sharing our tears and the love for our girls. It's we would have never thought that this would happen, and that it would become so big and so important to so many, and hurt so many, and we're just blessed to have everybody that we have.
They are really just taking it one day at a time, still a year later, and their story is coming up tonight at 10, right here on Channel 7.
All right, everybody, that's Channel 7 KTVB, if you need a source. So we are now 1 year later. Oh, mercy. Into the deaths of these young people. A lot has been said, positive, negative, innuendos, speculations. But Mr. Koberger is the prime suspect at this time. No one else has been entered in as an accomplice. No other suspects. He denies that he has done anything to these children. Hello, Terry. Thank you for joining me. As far as murdering them, we heard a lot of people speak in the beginning pertaining to the crime before he was even noted as a suspect. The house, this infamous house on King Road, remains. It will remain for now. FBI have been in the home lately to configure what I guess would be a model of this home for court when the trial commences for Mr. Koberger. How big will the model be? You hear this gentleman speak that works with the school, I guess affairs, student affairs. that the president, Mr. Green, wants to be sensitive to the needs of the parents. And naturally, we've only heard from Maddie's father. The Gonsalves have spoken, relatives have spoken. The Cornotals briefly spoken, but you don't hear much from the Chapins. Most of their commentary is pertaining to their son, not Mr. Kohlberger, the house, or anything of that nature. And many of you may question, why do they not say anything about the house, if they wanted to stand or not stand? The suspect, do they believe that he is the sole suspect? Their feelings in general about the crime, the motive, you never hear them speak. And some are curious. I'm also curious, but then I tell myself maybe they don't want to focus on anything negative and the nefarious dealings of the crime itself, because it is heinous, no matter what the motive is or motives were at the time of the killings. They don't want to focus on that. They just want to focus on who their son was when he was alive. And many people do that. They try not to focus on the suspect, anything that's negative pertaining to the murders. So I can't blame them for that. The house remains. The person who originally owned the house donated the house to the school, and the school is keeping it up thus far. As I said, agents have been in the house, authorities, to make a model of this. I do not know how big the model will be. I am curious to that, how big this model is going to be, because it's going to have to be a nice size in order to try to get a visual from the jury box into the house. So it's a good thing that the house remained, because the people in the house, the jury members, excuse me, I can see that they would want to go in the house, see what it's like. The only negative thing about the house staying up, excuse me, is that it won't be in the full effect as it was at the time of the crime. You won't have the pictures, the furniture, the things that were in the house that could lay out and be a visual so people can see what was in the rooms at the time of the killings, because every little thing matters. Where a cup sat, where was the door all the way on the hinges off, those type of things. Visual is key, and most of us need a visual aid. Most of us are visual creatures. We can gather our thoughts about a situation, circumstances, if we can visually see the structure still standing, but not the things in it, because naturally the family was given the items that they wanted belonging to the children. So that's going to be the disadvantage. The other advantage would be they took a lot of pictures, hopefully, of the rooms, outside, inside, frame by frame, door by door, entry, standing in the room, different visuals, looking out. So a person can get a good visual of what the rooms look like, as I said, with the items in the room, the bed, chairs, lamps, so on and so forth. Also show, if a person struggled, how hard it would be to get out of maybe the space they were in, because we heard Mr. Gonsalves talk about that the girl child was possibly had nowhere to exit out of the room because of the positioning of the bed. So all those things are going to matter. Visual aids, photographs taken by the forensic team, and also the structure itself, how the suspect entered, how the suspect exited, how much time he spent in navigating the space. I could see the jury wanting to go in there to see for themselves, not just someone saying, well, you go up the stairs, you go over here, you turn a corner, you went through a window. Go in and see it for yourself. How do you all feel about the house remaining? Do you believe the house should have remained, or should it have been taken down? You also hear commentary about students gathering funds to do a memorial at the school, which is a very noble thing to do. I'm very happy that there will be a memorial at the school. Now, as for the site of the house, what's going to happen to the house after trial, once this thing goes to trial, I don't know. I'm assuming the school would tear it down. And what will be its replacement? Another apartment, another house, a miniature park, just a little small memorial, just a plot of grass. I have no idea, but we will see if we're all here next year. This has to be a very tough time for the neighbors as well, living there near that house, because as you hear in this commentary, were they showing a sign, I guess near campus, on campus, you had a visual of the house, and the house, I'm telling you, what you've seen, spooky looking, whether you're up close or you're down the street, whatever angle you get of this house, it's creepy, very creepy, creepy indeed. And just looking at that brief still with the house in the background, and this is the front facade of a house. Very creepy. So I can't imagine being someone that lives on the street, live next door. What about the person that lives next door? That would have to be very creepy, living next door, because you were home. If you're the same resident that was there a year ago, you were there possibly sleeping and or coming or going. Hello, everybody in the chat. While this thing was killing these kids, it's baffling, because as I have said to some of you on the channel as of late, responding to some of your comments below the videos, you try to rationale, why this happened to these kids or other true crime, the motive, what's the motive? But in the end, I'm sure a family member, they don't care about the motive, because it's not going to make sense to them, because it's their loved one. And someone who has some bit of empathy for the deceased, I can't wrap my head around a motive either. Why these kids? But then would have to tell myself it was going to be somebody because of who the perpetrator is. And that's what everyone needs to understand about true crime. It's going to be somebody, you see. And that's why we all need to be fortunate. Grateful rather, that we wake up and see tomorrow, because we have sick people out here. I talk about this all the time, about aiding criminals, helping them after the fact. Why? You say, why do you do that? Why would she do that? Because they could. A lot of these people have similar mindsets. And I've talked about this with Caitlin Armstrong and other criminals. There are people who help after the fact. They may not have plotted the death, the murder. They may not have given the person the gun, the knife, but they help afterwards, which is just as seedy as if you sat along with them plotting the death of the people or the person. Why are you giving someone your passport? Why are you hiding the gun? Why are you listening to the story, but you don't go tell authorities? And as I said to someone today, or the other day, rather, you have people who do this. They aid the criminal. They help hide them out, send them money so they can stay on the run, help them escape jail, prison, even help them in the judicial process of getting out of a crime. Paying off judges. See, it goes high up. Crime. It doesn't always have to be about murder, but we have people who aid. And in this case with Mr. Kohlberger, I'm sure he has fans. He has people who are rallying behind him. I saw a video, I think was last week. It was a female who has a YouTube channel. And I just saw it in the queue where she says, the title of the video is, I know why Kohlberger didn't commit the crime. Now, I could have easily went to my phone and pulled it up because I was watching it on my TV. I could have easily went to my phone found the video and commented, but I said, you know what? I'm not even about to give Satan that kind of time, because this is the devil's work. You putting up a video saying, I know why Kohlberger didn't do it. Well, I'm going to lean toward the fact that he did, okay? Just because of the evidence they have, and we know, supposedly, that in order to secure a warrant, which has to be signed by a judge, I don't care what the warrant is for, it could be theft, it could be anything, there has to be substantial evidence that you did this crime before the judge will sign the warrant. So I'm going to lean on faith that what the state took before the judge was investigated with a receipt, and the judge signed the warrant for the arrest of Mr. Kohlberger on these murders. Circumstantial, perhaps, some of the evidence, but we do not know all of the evidence that they have. And as I said, I won't doubt that there will be some people who can actually put him at the scene of King Road, actually put him there mulling about on different days, not just the morning of the 13th, but different days. Oh, yeah, I saw him. Yeah, I saw him walking, lurking. Yeah, I saw the car several times. Yeah, I saw the car stalling, driving by slow. See, you don't know, because naturally they're not going to give you that information as to protect the safety of the witnesses. And also the two females who were allegedly in the house, resided in that said house. Where are those ladies today? Will they be attending the vigil in Moscow this evening? I'd like to know if they were going to attend. I'd like to know what they've been doing with their time since this travesty took place. How do they feel about all the things that have been said on social media about them? The Queen has had a few things to say, probably not in the nicest of light, but I call things the way I see them. I do not say that they had anything to do with the murders. Know the suspect. I just say it's strange, okay? It's strange to me, because if I'm to believe the evidence that the state has against Mr. Kohlberger, as far as going to that house, stalking the young ladies on social media, whomever, whichever one was the obsession, hatred, those young ladies were in those photographs, videos. Cars are lined up in front of the house on the day of the crime, the morning of the crime, and beforehand. So if Mr. Kohlberger has been watching this home, he knew that more people resided inside of the house, number one, because he has seen videos, photo stills of the young ladies. Two, riding, stalking. He sees the cars, probably even knows who drives which cars. Stay woke, possibly where they work, all type of personal things, because this is how you get to know your victim's movements, is that you watch. So I'm going to say it again. Why are there two victims, some call them victims, two females left behind? 3-level house. He's had to watch to know. Probably Googled the house like some of us did when this crime took place to get a layout of the house. So if we did it out of curiosity when we got news that these children were murdered, I would assume Mr. Kohlberger did the same. He studied the layout of the house through Google Photos. He's been over to the property, lurking about, and the Gonzalez's believe that perhaps he had been in the house due to some reason, and I'd like them to share that with us, because they have been the most talkative and vocal about the crime itself. What is it that you, what brings you to that conclusion that Mr. Kohlberger had been in the house the day before? Please enlighten us. I'd like to know that. I am very curious. And once again, Mr. Mogan has also done a personal interview to the news pertaining to the 1-year anniversary. Feel free to check that out in the YouTube queue. May play a little bit of that information during this live stream. But it is a heinous crime. So many things to look at. And another thing I want to touch on, besides the two who, as some may say, survived, however you want to look at it, The Gonzaleses in the beginning were very vocal, as I said, about the crime. And they had always made, little comments about who was not being interrogated, who they thought should have been brought in, or something to that effect. In one of the recent interviews they had done, that's a little while ago, you could see that the mother and the father were not on the same page as far as Mr. Kohlberger being the suspect. I think Mr. Gonzalez was kind of on the line of, let me see everything that the state have against him. Okay? So we go back in time a year ago today. They were very vocal on, I think, the interrogation process. So I'm going to ask them during this live stream, who did they think was the culprit before Kohlberger was announced as the killer? I'm curious. Who did they think was the possible suspect or suspects? Because I believe they had somebody in mind because they rolled that horse down to the ground. I don't think they did this. I don't think they talked to this person. I don't think they did this. So at that time, before Kohlberger was announced as the killer, suspect, who do they think was the primary suspect? I'm curious. We heard all types of things about the crime, the brutality of the crime, who the intended target was. And as the medical examiner has told the public, that just because a victim or victims had more wounds than another victim, it does not mean necessarily that he was the target. Because if the person fought back, they would have more wounds because they're trying to preserve their life. And I think all of us know that. That makes a whole lot of sense. You're trying to stay alive. You're trying to get this thing off of you. So you're kicking, screaming, doing all you can do, hands, arms, wrists, and naturally you're being wounded while trying to fight for life. So you would have more injuries. And I think most of the people don't really understand that you would have more substantial wounds if you were fighting back versus somebody who just gave in. And in either way, it's horrific in the fighting back, because I try not to visualize the crime itself, as I've heard with other similar crimes of people being stabbed to death. And it's hard to visualize being startled, for one, out your sleep, or the person walks in and you're like, what are you doing here? And you're fighting for your life. I don't think many of us can just grapple with that. How can you? Now imagine the parents. These are their children. And they have to, have that in their head. Not saying they want to visualize it, but naturally it's in their head. My child suffered trying to fight this thing off that they didn't know. He didn't know them. Why my child? Once again. But as someone would say, why anybody's child? Because as I have said before, due to this type of crime, which I think it was some type of, sick sensation, obsession, it was going to be somebody. He happened to choose one or all of the young ladies as the target, and it was going to be somebody. Somebody was going to be moaning about their baby, unfortunately. And that's what I think a lot of us need to understand about true crime when it comes to sadism. If not your child, sister, mother, whomever, it's going to be somebody. And the worst thing about crime, a crime such as this, is the location, a private home. We expect people to be villains, do wrong, but you don't expect to be murdered in your own house, in your own bed. That is where you should feel safe. It's in your house, your home. You go out into the world, school, work, out having fun, bar hopping, whatever it is that you do. sporting events, taking a walk in the park, walking the dog, whatever you did today. But you do not expect that when you return home, that you would be fighting for your life inside of your home, your bed. And that is a terrible, terrible scenario. I've been grappling with that the past couple of days, knowing that this day was approaching. And I said to myself, there are a lot of things you can do wrong. You expect people to do wrong. You expect people to commit crimes, carjacking, stealing a woman's purse, or stealing a car, or stealing at the store, or robbery at a store. But what you don't think about is dying in your own house. That's sacred, because your home should be the safest place in the world. Nowhere else should you even think about being less safe is your home. That is your palace, trailer, barn, condo, mansion. It doesn't matter. You should feel safe in your house. Because if you can't feel safe in your house, where can you feel safe? You have to be able to sleep. You have to be able to take a bath, take a shower, eat, do homework, read a book. You can't do that in your house. Where can you do it? That's what troubles me about this story. Not that he fixated on one of the females or more. Not that he circled around the house several times in the short few months that he was a student at Washington State University. It's the fact that he made entry. That bothers the hell out of me. Because I'm a female. And I have to live in the space I'm in with no one else there. And that's why this story is troublesome to me. The making entry into the home and then stabbing them to death in their beds. It can't get any worse than that. Because as I said, there will be many crimes until the earth is no longer existing. But you do not anticipate fighting for your life in your house. That to me is the worst crime. Is not expecting someone to break into your house and murder you in your bed or wherever you lied in your house. That's the worst case scenario. Let's get to Mr. Koiberger because he is a part of this storyline. I do not want to focus on him, of course, but he is a part of this story. Let's see what they have about him now. Thank you all so much for joining me. Welcome to the Vault Excel. Examination of Brian Koiberger and the Idaho murders. The Daily Mail is the source. Thank you for joining me. As Mr. Gonsalves said, he's not a part of anything. But for now, he is the main lead. And hopefully he won't be the main line like we see so much with true crime. Always talking about the killer, what they did, where they're from, why they did it, the motive, upbringing, blah, blah, blah. But sadly, people do focus on that because they can't grapple in their head. Why? Why these people? Why these children? Why? What was wrong with him? What was going on? Did somebody see the signs? What were the signs? But as you see with true crime, there are some people who pop off and they never had violence in their history, never broke the law, don't have a criminal record, meek, mild-mannered, and one day they just slid off the radar. And I think that's what happened with Caitlin Armstrong. She got pushed and pushed and pushed, not making excuses, but she said, the hell with it. I want this man. I want nobody else to have him. I'm going to kill this lady. Get rid of her because she's the problem. Now, maybe not the same motive with this Kohlberger business, because each person has their own reason for why they want this one deceased, and the mode and the method of getting them gone. It's still heinous nonetheless, but different motive, different motivations. That's what makes true crime so unique. All right, everybody, here we go. 1 second.
Still no justice for Xana Kernodle.
Well, she doesn't want to act right today. Here we go. Sorry about that.
Tragedy tore through the picturesque college town of Moscow, Idaho. 4 students were slaughtered in bed by a masked intruder. Now, on the 1-year anniversary of the Idaho college murders, there is still no justice for Xana Kernodle, Ethan Chapin, Madison Mogan, and Kaylee Gonsalves. Brian Koberger sits in an Idaho jail awaiting a murder trial that may not come for many years. The truth is, 12 months after the killings, the biggest questions about the crime still haven't been answered. What was the motive? Who was the target? And did the killer know the victims? Now, we've made educated guesses, but the real answers will likely only be found at trial. A trial that was supposed to be wrapping up this week. Instead, it has been delayed indefinitely because Koberger waived his 6th Amendment right to a speedy trial. Despite the gag order and delay, I still learned a lot about the night of the crime in my year investigating this case. So here is the most detailed timeline to date that we have about the night of the killings and where things stand now. From the onset of the investigation, police believed that this was a targeted attack. Cops claimed to have collected evidence that their suspect, Brian Koberger, had been stalking the residents of 1122 King Road for months. In June of 2022, the 28-year-old moved from his hometown in the suburbs of Pennsylvania to Washington State University to get his doctorate in criminology. Roughly 2 months later, police say Koberger began popping up around the victim's home less than 15 minutes away from where his residence was in Washington. According to a search warrant, Koberger's phone began pinging in the vicinity of King Road on August 21st, and on that date, his phone was allegedly in the area for nearly an hour. He's also suspected of loitering around campus. A sophomore at the University of Idaho told a People reporter that they'd seen Brian at the student union. Now, he was a student at a different university, so that doesn't make a lot of sense. Now, based on phone records, investigators believe that Koberger went to the home and watched the house 12 times from late August until November. Now, Kaylee's family said Koberger allegedly got so close he was able to connect to their Wi-Fi. On November 12th, it was a game day at the University of Idaho. The campus was teeming with students decked out in vandals gear to tailgate, party, and cheer on the team. But 4 of them would not live to see the next day. The residents of 1122 King Road, Kaylee, Maddie, Xana, Dylan, and Bethany, spent the day out at a party together. In this now infamous photo, the roommates posed together along with Xana's boyfriend, Ethan. After this, the group split up for the night. Maddie and Kaylee went out to a local bar, the Corner Club, where they were seen on security footage from 10 p.m. to 1:30 a.m. Then a Twitch stream places them at a local food truck, picking up a late-night snack. They were then driven home by a rideshare at 1:56 a.m. Meanwhile, Xana and her boyfriend Ethan went to a party at his fraternity Sigma Chi. Surviving roommate Bethany was also there and told cops that the couple was at the party from 9 p.m. to 1:45 a.m. The Sig Chi house is so close to the King Road residence you can actually see it from the front yard. By 2 a.m., all of the roommates were home, along with Ethan, who was sleeping over with Xana. The first sighting that investigators say that they have of Koberger's car that night was a little later at 2:44 a.m., leaving his Washington State University apartment and heading out of Pullman, Washington, towards Moscow, Idaho. Now, just as police say Koberger's white Hyundai reached the main road connecting the 2 college towns, his phone suddenly just goes off the grid. Now, he took a kind of weird roundabout route around Moscow. Now, I drove it when I was covering the story on the ground, and there were some random turns. The white sedan is picked up on camera in Moscow at 3:26 a.m. and 2 minutes later, again, driving now in the direction of the victim's home. Koberger does not dispute that he was out driving at this time. In fact, he's using it as his alibi. In court documents, his lawyers write, quote, Mr. Koberger has long had a habit of going for drives alone. Often he would go for drives at night. He did so late on November 12th and into November 13, 2022. They go on to say their client doesn't have anyone to corroborate this, nor can Koberger say with any certainty where he was driving and when that night, only that he says he was not at 1122 King Road. Investigators disagree. Police claim to have tracked the white Hyundai through surveillance footage to King Road between 3:29 and 4:04 a.m. Cops say his car was seen making 3 loops in front of the house, and then on the 4th pass, the car just disappears from CCTV footage for about 15 minutes. This is when law enforcement believe that he parked his car, entered the home, and committed 4 brutal, bloody murders. But if you're wondering if within that 15 minutes that we don't see him, the car might have just driven away in the other direction, the answer is definitively no. This street is a dead end. The only way in or out is to pass in front of the victim's house. Now, operating on the police's theory that this is their suspect, his car would be either up kind of a narrow street on the side or more likely parked right back here, giving the driver a straight shot into that back sliding glass door. 4:04 a.m. is when cops say they lost sight of the Hyundai. It's consequently the same time that Xana got a DoorDash delivery. Now, the driver has been interviewed by law enforcement, but we don't know if they saw the suspect or perhaps the vehicle. Surviving roommate Dylan, who slept on the 2nd floor, said that she woke up around 4 to noises above her, which she said sounded like Kaylee playing with her dog. But then she said she heard one of the girls say, "There's someone here." Now, Maddie and Kaylee were on the 3rd floor, sharing a bed in Maddie's room. Kaylee's room was up there too, but she recently moved out because she was graduating that semester and she was actually just visiting for the weekend. The evidence all seems to point to the killer's intended target being on the 3rd floor. It isn't logical otherwise. If the target was on the 2nd or the 1st floor, why would you bother going all the way upstairs at all? A process of elimination leaves Maddie or Kaylee the likely target. I personally don't believe that he anticipated the girls sharing a room, so I feel like the plan just went off the rails pretty much out of the gate. The Gonsalves family told 48 Hours that Maddie was the first victim killed, potentially pointing to her being the target. But Mrs. Gonsalves also said that the way the bed was positioned, Maddie was sleeping closest to the door, making her the first body that the suspect would have come into contact with. A K-bar knife sheath, which cops say held the murder weapon, was also dropped next to Maddie, kind of signaling that this is where the start of the killings was. The snap of that sheath contained a single source of male DNA that investigators say matches Brian Koberger. According to records, Xana was awake at this point and still on TikTok at 4:12 a.m. Moments later, Dylan hears a female crying and a male voice saying something to the effect of, "It's okay, I'm going to help you." Then at 4:17, a neighbor's security camera picks up, quote, voices or a whimper, followed by a loud thud, and then a dog barking. At this point, Dylan has peeked out of her bedroom door several times and didn't see anything suspicious. But after she heard the crying, she looked out one final time and saw, quote, a figure clad in black clothing and a mask that covered the person's mouth and nose walking towards her. She described him to police as being 5'10" or a little taller, athletically built but not muscular, with bushy eyebrows. Now, I personally don't think he saw her, because what she says next is that she stood there frozen and he just walked past her toward those sliding glass doors. At 4:20 a.m., police claim they then saw Koberger's car, again on camera, leaving the area at a high rate of speed. Remember, his phone is still totally off the grid at this point and doesn't pop back on until 4:48 a.m. when it pings a tower south of Moscow, Idaho, on a dark, desolate farmway. Cops say Koberger's car is then picked up again on cameras around 5:25 a.m. in Pullman, Washington, heading in the direction back to his apartment. Now, before the bodies were discovered the next day, the records show that Koberger's phone returned. I can get this quotable first.
Sorry about that brief commercial. Lot of information. 5:25 a.m. back in Pullman. Okay.
Koberger's phone returned to 1122 King Road on Sunday morning around 9 a.m. and stayed there for approximately 10 minutes.
Very bold.
911 wasn't called until 11:58, basically noon. This call has always been shrouded in mystery. The call came from one of the surviving roommates' phones, but neither of them, Dylan or Bethany, actually placed it. Police said that several other people were at the house and multiple people spoke to dispatch. The call also wasn't for quadruple homicide, it was for an unconscious person. There are a lot of theories about why this is. We've gone into it in previous videos, but officials have never explained it. Now, at this point, the hunt was on for a violent killer, and cops didn't seem to have a clue where to start. They said it was one of the bloodiest crime scenes they'd ever seen. Weeks went by with no real updates from Moscow PD, and the department was heavily criticized for it. Then on December 7th, we got a little bit of an update. Police asked for the community's help in locating the driver of a white Hyundai Elantra seen in the vicinity of the crime, because, quote, investigators believe the occupant of this vehicle may have critical information to share regarding the case. But still, no suspect or person of interest had been named. Then, Seemingly out of the blue on December 30th, an arrest was made more than 2,500 miles away from Moscow in Pennsylvania. Brian Koberger. Koberger owned a white Hyundai Elantra. He was a PhD student in criminology at nearby Washington State University, and his DNA was matched to the sample of the knife sheath through another sample, which was taken from his father that law enforcement got out of their trash. According to Haley's parents, Koberger also allegedly followed their daughter and Maddie on Instagram. Maddie's Instagram account and look at her pictures, and he liked them. Sources had previously told People magazine that Koberger actually followed all three of the female victims and had repeatedly messaged one of them. The messages weren't mean or creepy. They were kind of innocuous, just, hi, how are you? But they were completely ignored. Since Koberger's arrest, police have searched his office on campus, his on-campus apartment, his storage unit in the building, his car, and even his parents' house. And they have collected some potentially damning evidence. Hairs, receipts, samples of dark brown and red stains, and the thing that stands out to me, an ID hidden inside of a glove, tucked inside of a box. They also pulled a ton of digital data from Koberger. They took it from his phone, his computer. They also scoured his accounts from places like Amazon, Google, social media, and even dating apps. Without the context, though, we really don't know how probative any of this would be in a court case. The killer's bloody clothes and the murder weapon have never been found, the two biggest pieces of physical evidence. Koberger, in the meantime, has been in and out of court multiple times since his arrest for various hearings, but he hasn't said more than a few words to the judge, and he hasn't spoken to the media. He actually refused to officially enter a plea, so one was entered for him as part of Idaho's stand silent option. In recent weeks, the defense team has tried and failed to get cameras tossed out of the proceedings. They also lost their bid to toss out his indictment. At this point, the case is still moving forward, but it's kind of at a snail's pace. We thought we would be wrapped up by now, and no trial date has officially been reset. Search Daily Mail videos on Facebook for more clips like this. For more
Daily Mail is the source, everybody. Wow. A lot of information. She talks very fast. Where do we begin? The motive. What was the motive? Who was the target? Why? Those girls, one of the girls, both, all, followed all on social media, liked Maddie's photos. We hear from a parent saying that. Doesn't matter who he liked, didn't like, followed, didn't follow. Doesn't matter. Going to this house 12 times from August up until November. No trial as of yet. Is he stalling deliberately for some sick reason as to get attention? I don't know. Did he move here to stalk and kill the girls or one of the girls? You also hear her say she doesn't think that it was supposed to be other murders. He wasn't expecting two of them to actually be in the same room, sleeping in the same bed. Is that true? That he was only fixated on one of them, and lo and behold, break in, go in his house, and voila, two of them here. I've got to kill both of them. Probably angry. Let's just say it was one. He wanted one, obsessed over one, and then see two in the bed. This is messing up my plan. I want to get in, get out, kill one, get out of there. All this shuffling around, CCTV footage, his car being seen. 3:29 to 4:04 a.m. He was in the area. Makes it back after he's committed this crime. 5:25. I think that's when the phone got turned back on. And puts it in Pullman, Washington. Then there's the search for this suspect. He comes up as a suspect. Also, I guess, with the ID from one of the witnesses, Miss Dillon. Bushy eyebrows. And yes, I'm sure many people were upset once he was apprehended in Pennsylvania. How did you let it go that long from this side of the country to over there? Because the car was made, I think, 2 weeks after the murders in Washington. I think school security in Washington State made a mark on the car, saw the car, and, started running the information. And then they compared it to the information that Dylan gave. Naturally, we didn't know anything about what Dylan had seen and had not seen anybody from the house. So you're talking about a month timeline, which is disturbing to know he was walking free this entire time when the car was made 2 weeks after, after the crime took place. You all started gathering information, running names, tags, personal information about him. You also hear here about the getting the search warrant, searching for everything, storage unit, the apartment, the work site, his job, office, nothing. They said he had a very bare apartment. Bare as in what? A bed, a sofa, a chair, what? What did he have? What didn't he have? How about that? Has his parents been in to see him? Sisters. Naturally, it's very expensive to fly cross country. Are they still supporting him? Who in the family is supporting Mr. Kohlberger? I'm curious. What is the end result going to be? How long is it supposed to go on, this grappling with this trial? As you heard her say in this commentary, it's supposed to have wrapped up this week, the trial, but now look at us. Month of November 2023, no trial. Lawyers wanting the case dismissed because of some grand jury business. Do you believe there was some improprieties done by the state pertaining to this case and gathering of information? Not bringing forward information to the defense? This is just sad. Very sad situation. Hello, Dollar. Hello, everybody in the chat. Thank you for joining me. Very, very sad. I don't have very much to add to this because it's depressing. It's a very depressing case. And as I said, if not those four, it would be somebody else. And that's what people need to understand. When you try to put in your head a motives, who was the target, he was going to find somebody. If this was his mindset, this was his mode of navigating the earth, it was going to be somebody. Had he stayed back in Pennsylvania, he would have found somebody to exact the same crime against. He would have still been brazen to stalk, go here, go there. He was going to do that. And that's what people need to understand about this crime. Him going to the home so much, his phone pinged onto the Wi-Fi. And that's how a lot of people are caught. It's that cell phone. Carrying their phone with them to the said locations to stalk the people, watch, lurk. And they should know by now, the phone will give you up every time. But Kohlberger was so thirsty, so greedy to be near these young ladies, whomever it was. He didn't even think. He didn't even think, let me cut my phone off before I get on the road. Because naturally he may have thought to himself, I'm probably going to need a phone just in case I get stranded, need to call for help, blah, blah, blah. But you should have cut it off before you left Washington on your stalking outings. His lawyer saying he does this a lot, driving out at night by himself. Well, he has to say that because the state is giving information that he's been to the house 12 times. DNA on the sheath. CCTV footage of that white car. And as I said, it's not including somebody or more who can say, yeah, I've seen him over here. Yeah, I've seen him stalking about, walking around the property. So you don't know who may actually put him there visually. How did he gain entry into the house? Was that glass sliding door unlocked? Because as Dylan told the world, that is the door that the bushy-eyed guy exited through the kitchen. So did he come into the house by means of the kitchen? I'm curious. Because usually people do exit the scene the way they came in. Rarely do they go out another way, unless they're being chased out. Then they get out the best way that they can. Why is this trial not taking place? Because the house is an eyesore. I'm sure many in the community want it down because they're tired of looking at it. It's just an eyesore and a bad omen. But it's staying up so a model can be made. All information gathered. I'm still puzzled by that as well, because I'm telling myself, it seems like to me by now, they should have already made a model of the house. You're talking about a year. We're at a year today. And nobody thought to make a model after getting a suspect? That seems strange to me. Very strange. I pray for the students, the town, the neighborhood, the parents of the victims, family members, friends, that they can just hold on a little while longer until justice is served. And naturally, if the trial ever takes place, because they're talking about years, which I hope not, they still won't bring their children back, of course. But some type of solace to get to an end. And I think it makes it worse for the family and friends to move on when proceedings, hearings, and the trial are held up, which is what is going on right now. It's held up. He's holding up the process and the process of these people moving forward. And that's why I said it could be deliberate. Let me think of everything I can to keep me from going to trial. Why? Seems like to me you want to be vindicated, prove you didn't do this, get a jury picked, and get on with the show. Don't you find that strange? You're saying, oh, I didn't do this. But yeah, you didn't put in a plea either. The judge had to enter a plea for you, which I thought was strange for somebody to say, I'm innocent in the beginning. See, this is where this looks like a game. He's smart, he's intelligent, but he ain't the brightest bulb in the patch. You understand? Because if he was bright enough, he would have, never committed this crime. And if he committed it, he should have done his best not to get caught. But he's not bright, because everybody knows you don't take your phone with you. Any type of weapon you're going to use, you don't ever touch it with your own bare prints. But this goes to show you he's not bright. He thought he was. He probably had this aura about himself that he was a know-it-all. He knew more than most people. He's smart, he's intelligent, blah, blah, blah. But in the end, he's the one that's locked up and incarcerated. Does he search for anything about himself? Because, they have access to iPads in jail, for those who did not know that. So does he ever search for himself? Is the family putting money on the commissary so he can have talk time and video message on the iPad? Does he search the latest articles? Does he ever try to tune into YouTube, news broadcast of himself, what people are saying about him? How does he really feel now that he has been behind bars almost a year? How does Corbecker feel about that? And when we go back to asking the question, motive, target, he's been to the house 12 times. This goes back to what I had already said before, in months ago. He had to have known that 2 other people lived there as well. Now, this lady here thinks only one was the target. He wasn't planning on seeing the 2 in the bed, so he had to kill the 2 right then. So that doesn't explain killing Xana and Ethan. Stay woke. Because, you see, he wasn't supposed to be in that damn house. He didn't live there. He wasn't invited. So things may not have gone the way he had planned. See, we will never know because he's not saying anything. Yeah, I killed those kids. This is the one I wanted. I wasn't expecting another girl to be in the room. I came down the stairs. One of the other ones saw me or heard me. You understand what I'm saying? Because it doesn't make sense. The story doesn't make any sense. But it's true crime. It's not supposed to make sense because it's nefarious dealings. It's evilness, evil doing. It's not supposed to make sense. 4 people murdered. 1 was a visitor. and 2 allegedly were on the bottom floor. But then we find out was on the main floor that he passed back and forth. Walks by this Dylan person. And what? He had tunnel vision because he was what? Exhausted from stabbing these people. And I would say that's a lot of work, stabbing. Because it takes a lot of force to stab a human being, especially if you're going deep, injuring organs. Brutal. Does he have any remorse for killing these kids? Does he go back in his mind and say, why did I do that? I could have handled myself differently. What was the motivation? Fear of being abandoned, neglected, not acknowledged, not being chosen. You see, that's why over in Texas, a young lady killed another young lady because she didn't feel chosen. Her boyfriend, she thought, I'm assuming, he liked the other woman better. So she killed her, hunted her down in someone else's apartment and killed her. Then you have this case here. 4 people bludgeoned to death inside of a house. But we don't have any information that he knows these young ladies and gentlemen, that they knew him, that anybody, friends, hung around each other, nothing. As I said, does the motive matter? It probably doesn't matter to the family because they're going to say, I don't care what the motive is. He had no damn business being in that house. And I agree. But we are humans and we're outsiders and we're going to wonder, why? Who was the target? Was it just accidental? The other ones got stabbed because they were in the way. They were eyewitnesses, rather. And will he ever tell the truth? Because a lot of killers will go year for year, especially after being found guilty. They never own to killing the person or persons. They still hold out. Wasn't me. Just that slim chance that they will get off. The technicality, it'll be something. And I think that's what he's hoping for. And that's why he's holding out with this reindeer game. I'm going to hold out. I'm going to look up every dirty card I can find to stall. Because I don't want to die in here, either naturally or, the death penalty. Let's talk about that. Does he fear being shot to death by a firing squad? That's an interesting mode of death. That's going way back in the olden days. Like Westerns. Shoot him to death. Several people shooting you to death. Does he think about that often? That's why he's stalling. Even though we know it takes a while before a person actually gets put to death. At least 10 or more years after being found guilty, sent to prison. Does Kohlberger think they'll find me guilty? I'll get the death penalty. And I'll just be counting down my days in a prison until they put me down like a baby dog, as I think he deserves. And I know we're not supposed to take a life for a life, but he did it. And he didn't have a reason to take a life. He didn't even know these people. So let me ask the family members, do they believe Mr. Kohlberger is the sole suspect in the murders of their children? Or is there anybody in the group that believes Kohlberger had help? That somebody else aided him, facilitated after the fact? Because we know he didn't have any friends, just people he passed through schooling, apartment. But is he the sole killer? I asked all the questions. Does not mean I believe in anything that I'm asking, but I'm throwing it out there because these are the things that have been mentioned since the children were murdered. A lot of nasty things said. And this is why I said I would never accuse anyone of murdering the children. And I kept my promise. Because after dealing with that situation down in Georgia of the lady who was found in the woods and burned up and all that, I learned not to say who I think the killer is, who the killers are. Because one, this story had too many tentacles to assume who the killer was. You understand what I'm saying? You had 4 children murdered, butchered to death, 2 still living in a house, staying in a house, numerous apartments, houses surrounding the house. The kids had different acquaintances, knew different people, dated different people. How in the world could I come up with a conclusion of a who and a why? And I told people when I first jumped on the story, I will not accuse anyone of murdering the children until authorities bring a suspect. Then I will give my opinion if I agree or disagree. DNA on the sheath, that's enough for me. 15 minutes away living, prove you didn't do it. Prove to me you know these kids. You hang with them. You hang with their friends, associates. Somebody was in your house, stole your knife. It's been missing. You reported it missing. See where I'm going? We have yet to hear anything to that effect. That he knows somebody that knows somebody. And they came in his house, stole his knife, took it out the glove box. It's been missing. Police report. And that knife and sheath ended up at this house on King Road, November 13th, 2022. Knife missing, sheath left behind. And I think we all know that's why he returned. It's because he said, oops, I forgot something. I forgot that damn sheath. And that's why he debated outside that house, 9 a.m. for about 10 minutes. Should I go in? Should I go in there? Nah, better not go in there. Because I got out. And allegedly nobody saw me. If I go back in, I don't know who may come or go. And I have to do a repeat and kill that person. Or people. And they might end up winning and beat me to death. That's why he didn't go back in. He didn't want to be risked seen going in 2 times. And he wanted to make sure he could get out unscathed. That's my theory. Because one would say, well, you've already been in there and killed the kids. Why now you got the heebie-jeebies about going in there? Because it was daylight. It's a difference. Breaking and entering at night is not the same as breaking and entering during the daytime. I think most of us know this. Because it would be risque to do it at 9-something in the morning. And you don't know who may pop up and come check on the girls because they're not answering their phones. Sometimes I think about the house and I say in the still of the night, can you hear them cry? Can the people who live nearby hear faint cries for help? Does the house cry? Help me. Help me. Because I could see that. Now, we're supposed to believe that people pass on after death. But I don't know. when I think of that house, and I think of darkness, the time that they were so brutally snatched from the earth, I could see the house crying. I don't even like looking at the house. It is ugly. It is unattractive. And it's not just because they were killed there. It's just not a pretty house. And I've seen some nice looking homes in my day. Small ones. And they look way better than that one. And that's something that crossed my mind too. Why this house? Why did these girls pick this house to live in? Seems like it would be more expensive as far as heating and cooling, because you're talking about 3 levels. I wonder that. How did they afford the house? Although, they had different, people living in the house, of course. Would have been 5 females splitting the rent. But something in my spirit was still saying, I said, why this house? What gravitated each female to the house? Did anybody ever have any reservations about moving in the house? And if it was not given to the school by the owner, what would he have done with the house? What was his initial thought to do with the house? Keep it, remodel it, paint it, different siding, shutters, break it up, tear it all down. What did the owner originally want to do with the house? I'm curious. What made him give the school that house? Because in the end, he could only just write it off on his taxes at the end of the year to say, I gifted the school this hell house. So I often pondered that too. Why did the owner give the school the house? Why did the school originally want to tear it down, knowing the perpetrator hadn't even gone to court? And what is it like walking by that house every day, driving by that house every day? And the poor people who live right next door that heard what we believe were Xana's cries whimpering. How in God's name do you go in that house and look up at that hell house, the window, and know that on that fateful morning, these kids were butchered and 2 were in a room fighting for life, Xana and Ethan? I don't think I could even live next door. I do not think I could live next door. I don't think I could live in the house that sits in back of it. I don't think I could live in the apartment building to the side of it, to the right of it. I don't think I could live anywhere within a few feet of that hell house. It needs to be taken down after they do whatever they need to do, the state. And they can't do anything because of this idiot and his defense attorneys stalling. I do believe this is a meticulous, articulated move on behalf of Kohlberger and Miss Annie and the Dream Team. I do believe they're looking for some magical glove. Maybe they can go call OJ. He'll have a spare. I don't know. But they have something up their sleeve, which I can't see what it could possibly be, because he doesn't have anybody to be an alibi, just himself. I don't think he has anybody that's going to speak on his behalf positively, that he's a good, decent human being every ugly thing negative about him, somebody's going to have to say and testify. They won't paint him in a good light. And he's going to have to explain following these kids on social media, any type of pictures or videos downloaded to his devices, which I'm sure he had a lot of, liking pictures of Maddie and whomever, being over there 12 times, don't know anybody, don't live over there, don't have any friends in Moscow, being seen over there possibly on foot, in car, and your DNA on the sheath, lying beside one of the girls in the bed. Now, how are you going to explain that? Oh, your phone hitting the Wi-Fi from the house. When was that? How are you going to deny that? How are you, Mr. Korberger, going to say why your phone hit the Wi-Fi back in August, September, October? And God forbid it was in the late night hour when you should have been at home studying. You see, I'm going to say this and I'm going to check out of here. And this is for Mr. Korberger and anyone out there listening. Whether you have homicidal thoughts, you're a sadist, psychopath, sociopath, you don't have to be what people think you could be or are. Because everyone is entitled to his or her opinion of people. And I'm assuming that any one of us could end up in Idaho 4 or Brian C. Korberger. Take your pick. But you, and only you, can change that. If you're awkward, shy, mild-mannered, don't easily get along with people, don't like crowds, that's fine. But you don't need to act on it maliciously. Because in the end, it's nobody's fault that you feel that way. Now, you could have been groomed to be mean-spirited, mistreated, because we learned that most sadists turn out this way, a killer, because of how they were treated as children and adolescents, maybe even early adulthood. But the point I'm making is you don't have to give in to the power of an assumption. Because we all have to own our SHIT, our downfalls, our quirks, our flaws. We don't have to feed the demon. And that is why we have true crime. It's because people act out of fear, out of, grooming, false ideologies of self, no clarification of their own identity, and they act out. You don't have to be that person. He did not have to become a killer. He did not have to stalk these kids if indeed that's what he did. He did not have to go in that house and break and enter and kill these kids. He could have still remained a mild-mannered, low-key person and try to make an attempt to navigate the earth in a civilized manner. You see, Korberger didn't give himself that chance. And he's like a lot of people out here who act out impulsively and end up killing people. You got to find a better way to deal with what's up here. Because I remember years ago, I had a young man say to me, he was a neighbor in an apartment building I lived in. He said, "You've got to stop letting people get up here. Don't let them get up here." And he was so right. You see, it's letting people get up here is the reason we end up in jacked up situations, acting impulsively, popping off, whatever word, however you want to word it, responding to the bullshit. Oh, I knew he'd do it. I knew she'd do it. We have to train ourselves to not respond. I could say while I'm doing this live stream, I could have easily responded to something, but my better half said don't, because that's what someone's waiting for you to do, is to respond negatively. Don't give the devil what he wants. Try to come up with a plan B, which means for the meanwhile, ignore the damn shit. Do you understand what I'm saying? Don't give the devil what he wants, because that's his job. He's a user and he's an abuser. And that's what he has done with Mr. Kohlberger. He used him to do his dirty work on November 13th, 2022. And in the end, Mr. Kohlberger forfeited his freedom to work for the devil for free. Because as they say in the street, the devil doesn't pay you anything. Never has, never will. And whatever satisfaction that he got out of murdering those kids, how do you feel now? You're stuck in a box and can't get out. And 9 times out of 10, you won't be coming out of there. You'll have to hope and pray that you'll get one person on the jury or two who will hold it up and say, nah, he didn't do it. And even if you get the one or the two, hung jury, the state ain't gonna give you no damn bond to get out of there. So you're getting ready to go replay all the shenanigans all over again, when you didn't have to put yourself there in the first damn place. You gave the devil what he wanted. He wanted a victim. And he chose you, Brian C. Kohlberger. And you foolishly fell for it. And you snuffed out 4 kids who had their entire lives ahead of them. They didn't know you and they hadn't done anything to you. But you didn't care. Because you were feeding that demon inside of you. It was a slow, slow burn. And on November 13th, you went full throttle. But look at the exchange. You're only free for 1 month. And you've been incarcerated ever since. As someone once said to me, it's the same, my cousin. I don't know where she got it from. But she said, even swap ain't no swindle. So that was his swap with the devil. Killing those kids. And the exchange is now sitting in a jail cell, awaiting trial. Ask and ye shall receive. And Kohlberger got what he wanted. This box, small, to only be put inside of another small box that he can't get out of. His choice. Thank you for joining me. When I get more information pertaining to this case, any updates, I will post it to my community board, and I also will bring you live commentary. Thank you all so much for joining me. Those in the chat, it's been a while since I've shown myself, but I had an appointment where I was already dressed early, and I said, well, I'm going to go live right after I come from that appointment. I want to thank you all for following this network, supporting this network. If you'd like to donate to this network, the Dream, $ Big Angie 129 Cash App. Stickers and chats are always welcome during the live stream. I owe you a story. I owe you a story. Excuse me, a commentary pertaining to Mr. Avery. I keep saying that. I'm gonna bring it to you. Give me time. I'm gonna bring it to you. But I want to thank you for following this network and supporting me. And as I said, a lot of times I post things to the network, the community page, but there's stories that I don't necessarily discuss in content. But I post it anyway. If I see an update or something piques my interest, I go ahead and post it. And I also like to apologize for my last live. The router issue was acting up because I was in another room doing the live, which makes no sense because I've done lives in another room. And for some reason, it's choppy, the audio. And I apologize because that was a 2-hour plus live bringing you all those updates. But I can gladly recap another day. But I thank you for following the network. And if you have anything you'd like to say below the video, please post your comment. Please take the polls that I have put up. And before I go, I'm going to do that. Hello, everybody. Hello, KK. Thank you. I've got this box sitting over here that I can't even remove. I was trying to drop the link. So I can't even do that because it's got this little chat box in the way, and I keep hitting this line to remove it. It won't remove itself for some weird reason. This computer's been acting up. I think she's telling me she wants to be replaced. Let me read you some of the polls, your answers, and then I'm going to check out of here. Thank you all so much for joining me. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Okay. This is polls from other true crime stories. This has nothing to do with Mr. Korberger. Elsa went to see Rex in jail. Why? Get him to sign the divorce papers, legal issues, 59%. Ask him to tell the truth, 12%. Love him, support him, 15%. A and B, 15%. Gold Runner says, to be honest, I wonder about her knowing something, but I'm not sure if it's just gossip. So I will say at this point, allegedly. I hope she doesn't know anything because that would just blow my mind. The Queen replies. I said, why would it blow your mind? Many people know of others' crimes and hold the secret. Then some finally tell, usually when it is too late. Gold Runner replies, yes, I guess you're right. It's just a horrible thought if indeed she does know anything. I reply again, for her sake, she better hope she doesn't know anything. You don't find it strange she is now visiting him in jail and allegedly will be attending his court hearings. Why? She files for divorce days after Rex's arrest, visited him in jail last week, and now going to court. I find this very peculiar and suspect. Maybe she knows more than police think they know about her, or she has something up her sleeve. We will see. Gold Runner replies, yes, I definitely find it strange. She went to visit him and is going to court. Very suspicious. Okay. So 59% of you believe she only went to the jail to try to get him to sign divorce papers and other legal business. Do you think Elsa knew about one of the murders or all? 1, 10%. All, 33%. Not sure of any, 57%. Now, this poll, the stats were a little bit different about a day or so ago. I think some of you, is like 60-something% of you thought that she knew about all of the murders, but now it's down to 33%. Most of you believe you're not sure she knew about any of them. Authorities say Elsa did not aid in the Gilgo Beach murders. Do you believe this? 43% of you said yes. 27% of you said no. 30% of you said not sure. Hound Love replies, I can't conclusively say she helped, but I do believe she knew or at least suspected, but it's possible she was an abuse victim as well. So I replied, if she knew, she never thought Rex would kill her as well. And then Gold Runner replies, good question. You see, as I said, you could hold the secret of a crime, murder, but what you have to tell yourself, if you found out they killed somebody or they confessed to you, you mean to tell me that you don't think they would not do it to you, how could you think that they wouldn't? As Happy Face Killer daughter said to Dr. Oz, if I became collateral damage, I do believe my father would have murdered me. Of course. Of course he would. Because who are you? You can't think you're somebody special because you are a daughter or sister of a serial killer, that they will look at you and say, oh, yeah, I wouldn't kill her or him. Yes, they would. I asked you about Colin Strickland. Is he violent? 77% of you said yes, 10% no, 13% not sure. Now to my Colorado story about the funeral home owners who have been arrested for piling at least 200 dead bodies inside. Should Colorado funeral home owners receive prison time? 95% of you said yes. 5% of you said no. I got a lot of votes on that one. I'd like to know who is the 5% that think these people should be walking around. That's scary to me. Okay. I think that's most of my polls for now pertaining to my stories. But feel free to go down the list and see the other polls. And then I've got that mess about old Bubba Copeland, the pastor who killed himself because he was outed as a cross-dresser. We're not even going to touch that. I want to thank you all for joining me. As I said, when I get more stimulating content commentary, I will bring it to the network. But this is what I have to say thus far. Please go back to the beginning of this live pertaining to the Idaho 4. My condolences to the family members, friends, prayers with the school, the neighbors, the town, the parents, and the faculty. And one thing I didn't mention during this live, because I try to remember everything, and it's hard sometimes. At the beginning of this live, you're going to hear the guy who works with, I guess, with student affairs of the school, speaking about how tragic it was and couldn't believe that it happened to the kids. Well, one thing I do find fault with you, sir, or whomever's in charge, is that you did not give the kids Kaylee anyway. I believe it would have been Kaylee and Maddie, or Kaylee and one of them, the degree as soon as they were murdered. You waited to give them their posthumous degree months later into the new year, and I didn't like that because she was supposed to have graduated that December. So she died a month before her graduation, Kaylee. And I thought it was in poor taste that she was not put in the roster with the students that graduated last December 2022. I think she deserved to have gotten a chair, cap, and gown in December. That's my opinion. Now, you all waited and went into the new year, this year, spring of 2023, and gave them the cap and gown and a chair, but I felt like it was a little too late. And that's just my personal opinion. I did not like that because my thing is you had graduation services in December of last year, and those girls should have gotten them then. That's my take. Thank you for joining me, everybody. You have been listening to the Vault XL. I'll talk to you guys later. Thanks for joining me.